We're going to be talking about recognising and supporting early labour. My name's Lucy. I'm one of the midwives at Poole. I work in the community, looking after ladies before and after they have their babies, and I'm also one of the home birth champions.
And my name's Sam, and I'm a Bournemouth community midwife, so also doing antenatal clinics, postnatal visits, and supporting home birth and the low risk birth centres.
So today we're going to talk about lots of different things, preparing for labour and also the signs of labour. We're going to be explaining what's happening to your body in early labour as well, and how the labour hormones kind of work and how to work with them.
We'll also be giving you tips on how to cope at home, so before you come into wherever you're going to have your baby in established labour, jobs for your birth partners and how they can help and support you, when to go in to your chosen place of birth and how to seek support you might need, and what to bring in your hospital bag. So preparing for your labour. When you're in the last few stages of your pregnancy, it's really important, as it is throughout your pregnancy, to monitor baby movements. Babies always move. It doesn't matter what stage of your pregnancy that you're at, but they're always going to move. So really monitor the baby movements until baby arrives, and if you've got any worries about a change in pattern or a reduction in movements, then call Labour Line. Also, in the last few end of your pregnancy, try and keep your stamina up, because going into labour can be a long process and it can be very tired. So as well as getting the right amount of rest and the right amount of nutrition, it's important to try and build your stamina up. So going for walks, maybe doing some Pilates or yoga, swimming if you're able to. That's very important as well, just to kind of build your stamina up so you're ready for labour. And one of the most important things to do is to think about your position, because your position of your pelvis can affect where your baby is while it's in uterus. So if you think about your pelvic tilt, if we're sitting this way up with your baby head down like this, what we are looking for is the baby's spine against the front of your tummy. So think about your pelvic tilt. So if my pelvis is this way up, I've got my baby in a good position here. If I'm slouching, and we all slouch and sofas are big and soft and comfy and everything, your pelvis might be a bit like that. So already you're going to encourage your baby with the baby's head down. The next heaviest thing after the head is the spine. So if we're slouching with your pelvic tilt like that, your baby's just going to, with gravity, rotate round and be what we call a back-to-back baby. So try and remember, in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks of pregnancy, sit upright. If you've got a birthing ball or a peanut ball, sit on that. That's going to encourage your pelvis to be upright like that. Or if you've got a dining chair, turn the dining chair round, sit over the back of it like that, just to encourage the baby to be in a good position with baby's back against the front of your tummy. And that's going to help when you go into labour. It's going to shorten your labour, because the baby then doesn't have to turn to get into the right position before you're going into established labour.
So it's kind of any position where your knees are lower than your hips is good, isn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of slightly forward leaning almost.
Exactly,
position.
but think about your pelvic tilt. We don't want that, because then you've got your little coccyx bone in the way as well. We want nice upright position.
Yeah. So there's lots of things that you can be doing when you're on maternity leave, so in those last few weeks of pregnancy, to kind of get ready for when you're having this baby and this labour. So batch cooking is quite an essential. You need really good home cooked food when you've had a baby, not just beige food. So something with vegetables in. It's going to make you feel much better when you're tired with your newborn baby. And obviously having some date nights as well. We're going to talk a lot about hormones today, but the love hormone oxytocin is a really important hormone, and it's released when you feel safe and loved. So, having some date nights, getting cuddly together with your partner, and just making the most of this last bit of time together as a couple. If you've got other children, then, getting babysitters organised. It's just a really nice opportunity to kind of mark the change that's about to come.
remember why you like each other, so when you're really tired.
Exactly. And you know, just connecting with your bump as well, you know, thinking about this baby that you're going to meet soon as well. So, you know, it's absolutely fine to do very little in your maternity leave and spend a lot of time chilling and playing music and talking to baby and things. So there's some studies, a little bit of evidence that suggests that raspberry leaf tea can be helpful, particularly in actually making the labour contractions more effective, mainly for the pushing stage of your labour. So that's something that you can have in tea form or in capsules. If it's tea form, then you would start it from 32 weeks, just one a day, increasing to about 36 weeks, 4 a day maximum. So, you know, it may be worth looking into that. Also, there is some data, some small studies on the importance of dates. So eating dates in the last month of pregnancy, that can help to make the cervix more prepared. And therefore, when you arrive to have your baby, if you're coming into the hospital or if the midwives are coming to you at home, that your cervix is more progressed, so, you know, has made more changes, you know, in some of these studies with women eating dates. And therefore, it can help to avoid an induction as well. So it's something to consider. And you know, do have a look online or speak to your midwife if you want more information about that. Okay. So one thing that you will be doing with your midwife about 36 weeks is your birth plan or birth preferences. This is an opportunity to discuss your options with your midwife and also to make a plan as far as based on yourself, where is the best place, the safest place for you to have your baby. It's really important that you feel empowered to make decisions on your birth, and it is much easier to take on board information when you're not in labour and to make these decisions. Obviously being open-minded and flexible, but having a bit of a template to work to, and also your birth partner knowing what that is.
So what are the signs of labour? How do you think your labour may start? There's lots of different ways that your labour can start, and it's kind of thought of that your body starts making changes probably 2 or 3 weeks before you actually see any physical signs of labour. But when you're getting starting to go into labour, you might have a bit of sickness, you might have a bit of an upset tummy, your body kind of getting rid of everything that it doesn't need. You also might have a mucus, what's called a mucus show, and that is a mucus plug that's in the neck of the cervix, and that tends to come away when the cervix is starting to change shape and starting to move forward. And like I say, you'll just find it on wiping after you've been to the toilet, or you might find it in your underwear. And it really is just a sticky mucus sort of blob, if you want, for want of a better
snotty,
word.
isn't it?
A bit snotty, but I hate the word snot, so I don't say it. So, like I say, you might just find it on wiping after you've been to the bathroom. And once you've got that mucus show, it can keep reoccurring. It doesn't just come once and then that's it, all done. So you might notice it for a little while. When it first comes away, that's not a clinical indication that you're going to immediately go into labour. So it isn't something that we need to know about. Just tell your midwife at your next appointment.
So obviously contractions will start when they're ready, and those you tend to feel them in your lower tummy as like a strong period pain, or in your lower back, or you may feel them in both places. Sometimes they start at the front and move to the back during the contraction. So it's kind of like a squeeze, like a pressure with this periodial back pain at the same time, and they will build in intensity and frequency, so they can be a bit all over the place, can't they, to start with, especially with your first baby. So really
starting
and really infrequent, you know, so kind of not in a regular pattern. You know, you couldn't tell when the next one would come. Normally for a little while when they first start, it can be that, you know, a couple of days or a couple of nights that you're contracting for, normally with a bit of a stop. You know, especially as the sun comes up and the body just wants a bit of sleep and to kind of rest, and then they start again before they regulate. So we're waiting for them to be 3 in 10 minutes, so every 2 to 3 minutes, lasting about a minute, and feeling all the same, okay? And contractions where you can't, say, write a text message or have a conversation, you know, you have to really focus on those contractions, okay, and kind of really commit to them to get through each one. So it's a bit like a wave. You get a peak at the top, in the middle, and then the contraction starts to ease again. So it's this coming and going effect. Okay. So that would be one of the reasons to phone Labour Line, which is obviously on the front of your notes, and just let us make us aware that you're contracting that regularly, and then we'll obviously invite you into the hospital, or obviously send a midwife to you if you're having your baby at home. So there's also the possibility of your waters breaking before even any of these things that we've talked about already. You know, there's no set pattern. You don't have to have all of these symptoms, okay? So if your waters were to break, that is another reason to phone in, because there's obviously then a leak in that water sac somewhere, whether it's the waters in front of your baby's head, which tends to be more of an obvious, you know, your knickers may be wet, you may even feel a bit of a pop. It doesn't always collect on the floor like in the films, but you know, an obvious amount normally if it's the waters in front of baby's head. Whereas if it's a leak more around the back of the water sac, that can be more of a little trickle that just keeps happening. So if it's not obviously smelling of urine, then if you're leaking fluid, trickling quite frequently, more than once, we would obviously recommend to phone into Labour Line, and we can see you and assess whether it was your waters or not. So there's a few different colours that your waters can be, but we like them to be clear or slightly pinky coloured. So that's a normal colour of waters around your baby. If the waters are green or brown, that's a sign baby's had a poo in the water sac. So it's released some meconium, which is their first stool, and that then is obviously floating in that water and makes that water a green or brown colour. Okay, so that would certainly be, the recommendation would be to phone straight away if you notice that green or brown colour. So don't, you know, have a shower and do your makeup and then call us. Just phone us. Try and collect that evidence. If you think your waters have gone, get a pad in your knickers. You know, so that would make it obviously then a lot easier for us to see when we check you. You know, when we assess things as to what's happened. Okay.
And if you're buying some pads, get some of the very cheap, old-fashioned sanitary pads, if you like, just in case your waters go. Because if you bring those into the unit, we can then very obviously see that it is your waters, what colour they are. All the sort of like modern super duper sanitary
really
pads, the thin ones that take all the moisture away, it's more difficult for us to see evidence of your waters going. So just buy a packet of the real cheap ones.
Definitely.
Just for this sole purpose.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of ladies do get backache, especially in late pregnancy, and that can be a sign of your body brewing. But ultimately, we're waiting for contractions to regulate or your waters to break as the true signs that things are happening. You're going to meet your baby soon.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you're ever unsure, we would rather you just phoned. Okay, so calling that Labour Line number.
And if your partner should call Labour Line, we would always want to talk to you, because we can tell a lot about your labour and where things are going by your reaction and how you're speaking on the telephone. So if your partner calls, we will still want to speak to you. So let's explain what's happening to your cervix while you're in the early stages of labour. So if you imagine your uterus is like a balloon and the cervix is in the knot in the balloon, and it starts off with your baby all tucked down like this, and it's right round here. So in front of the baby's head, your baby's like this, so it's round here. And it's about 2 centimetres long, and it's gristly, like the end of your nose. So there's an indentation at the top and at the bottom, and I've modelled my cervix here out of a piece of Play-Doh. So as your contractions, whilst you're at home, they're stopping and starting. You might feel a bit sick and a bit nauseous, like we said before in the earlier videos. And what that cervix is doing, where if I can get Lucy to hold my baby, like that, it starts off round here, like I say, and then gradually with the contractions stopping and starting, it's slowly moving
forward to your front, to mum's front. And with those contractions stopping and starting and the pressure of the baby's head, what that cervix is doing is then getting flatter. So it's going from your 2 centimetre tube to what we call effacement. And then those 2 indentations with the pressure of the baby's head on the cervix, they're starting to meet in the middle, and then you're getting a tiny bit of dilatation. So as your cervix comes forward and changes shape, it goes from 2 to 3 centimetres long to completely flat. Those 2 indentations meet in the middle, and that would be what we would call 1 centimetre dilated. So that can take quite a lot of time, like I say, with the contractions stopping and starting. But if we were to do a vaginal examination, we're not just looking at how thick, how far dilated you are, we're looking at the thickness of the cervix, whereabouts is it, the position of your baby, and the dilatation. So lots of different changes. And when I talked earlier about the mucus plug, that's what's coming out from the centre of the cervix before it starts dilating. So Lucy's got a balloon. She's going to
meet
explain.
my uterus. So your uterus, actually your womb, becomes 500 times the size by the end of pregnancy. So it does explain some of these discomforts of pregnancy, would you say? Stretching pains, a lot of people call them. So with your cervix, so you've got your uterus here, and you've got your cervix down here at the bottom, okay? And it's like a tunnel, exactly like Sam was saying, so that long tunnel, and totally closed as well. So we can't actually reach through that tunnel to touch my baby's head or ping pong ball, okay? So the uterus is really clever. It's got lots of vertical muscles running lengthways all the way around the uterus. So what that means is that then when the contraction starts at the top of the uterus, so that's the bit that your community midwife, if she's measuring your tape measure with a tummy, the fundus, the powerhouse of the womb, that's what she's measuring too. And this is where all the contractions start. And they have the effect of pushing downwards by contracting the muscles here, by shortening those muscles. So very much like a bicep curl, a shortening of a muscle. That's exactly the same thing that's happening here. So what's going to happen is those muscles are shortening, and that cervix will obviously then have that pressure of that head onto it. And as you can see, things will start to change.
You see the cervix is getting shorter.
And eventually, with enough contractions and time, because that's the thing, we don't want to rush this. You know, labour takes a bit of time, and that's fine. We're going to end up with a really thin cervix. Hopefully you can see there now that we've got a super thin cervix, okay? So we've got no length now in that cervix. So we can actually reach that ping pong ball. We could examine this mummy vaginally with her consent, and we'd actually feel that top of that baby's head with the water sac in front of it. This mummy would be about 1 centimetre dilated, okay? So that's an awful lot of change that's had to happen before this cervix can now start to properly dilate and open up to that 10 centimetres eventually, okay? So the shortening and the thinning out and the softening is absolutely key. That's what all of these really important early labour contractions are going to be doing. So contractions that are starting and stopping, contractions that are irregular, those are the ones that we need to make this softening and this thinning out happen. So your cervix can now start to dilate, okay?
And that's the difference between the contractions when you're in early labour as opposed to Braxton Hicks. The Braxton Hicks contractions you can get from 33, 34 weeks, and they're a bit more like a bear hug. So they're sort of squeezing from the side rather than the pushing down. So then the Braxton Hicks won't make any difference to your cervix at all. It's just the muscle tightening and kind of, you know, sussing out what to do.
Just a little squeeze
little
rather than a proper
Yeah.
pressure downwards.
Yeah.
So another way to explain it, we've got a few cards here. So for people that are a bit more visual, as it were. So this is obviously a baby and a uterus. Okay, and we've got obviously waters around this baby. So this is the front of mummy and the back, the bottom of this mummy. And so this vagina here, if we were to do a vaginal examination on this mummy, we would find that her cervix was very thick still, okay, so like that Play-Doh that Sam had, so very thick, so no changes have happened yet, and we can't reach through the cervix to touch the baby's head yet, so that cervix hasn't started to dilate, okay. Whereas once we get some contractions going and you're in early labour, we get to a point where this cervix is starting to thin out. So you can see now this thickness is much less, okay? It's probably about half at least the thickness of before. So that's a really good sign. There's lots of progress that's been happening. This mummy may have been at home contracting, say, all night, and then, you know, the contractions have stopped, but things have obviously occurred and changes have already happened, which is brilliant.
And you can see the waters there in front of the baby's head.
Oh, yes.
In the bag of waters.
And then eventually we're hoping as this process continues in early labour, the cervix to start to dilate. So the cervix needs to get to paper thin from about 3 centimetres long. So you can see the cervix now here is really thin. You can only just about see it. And there's now a gap to be able to get towards baby's head and that water sac. So this mummy has started to dilate, her cervix has started to open. And all of that work obviously has happened in early labour, and now established labour can occur. It's just really important to know and to understand the length that things can take, you know, so not expecting from the first feeling, the first contraction, for it to only be a few hours, that actually, especially with your first baby, like we said, it can take a while for things to build and your body to make these changes that it knows how to do.
And think about how we use the cervix, or how Lucy demonstrated with the balloon. That's going to take quite a long time. So when you're having all these backaches and contractions stopping and starting, it is making a difference, but it doesn't mean you're going to have your baby within the next couple of hours. It can be quite a long process. So that's why at the beginning we said it's important to, you know, rest, get a little bit of exercise, eat well, all that kind of stuff as well, just to kind of prepare yourself for the next stage of your labour.
So now we're going to talk about oxytocin. Oxytocin, there's lots of hormones in pregnancy, but oxytocin is the hormone of love. Oxytocin is what got your baby in there, and it's going to be what gets your baby out. But oxytocin, this hormone, it likes nice, dark, warm, safe places. So feeling loved and nurtured and treasured and safe is going to help your contractions to start and to continue to build and then continue to be consistent throughout your labour. Oxytocin is released when you're hugged and you feel loved and comfortable and safe, like I say. So when you're at home in the very early stages of labour and you feel these contractions stopping and starting and there's no pattern and no rhythm, it might be an idea, if you feel like you're losing control a little bit, go to maybe the nursery or go to where you feel safe and loved, that you can just sit quietly and kind of refocus and regroup and think, this is normal, I can do this, I can cope with this. Let the oxytocin start flooding back in and then start again. Like I say, it likes nice, dark, warm, safe places. So keep the lights low at home, play some soft music, keep a box set that you've been dying to watch for ages, something funny that's going to make you laugh, that's going to just help you distract from these contractions that aren't in any kind of pattern at the moment. It's kind of nature's pain relief. Being massaged is very good as well, and that's a good thing to practice before you're actually in labour. From about 36 weeks, get your partner to start giving you regular massages. So when you come into where you're going to have your baby, or if you're at home, you feel really comfortable having a massage, your partner feels comfortable giving you a massage with somebody else, like a midwife, in the room as well. And that's going to help encourage the oxytocin.
It's going to release all those lovely endorphins, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when you exercise, you know,
Yeah.
and that is your natural painkillers that help your body. You know, your body's obviously amazing. It's created this situation where, despite being in labour, it's giving you that natural painkiller effect if you allow it to.
Yeah. And midwives are more than happy to give you a massage, but there's way more oxytocin between you and your birth partner than there is between you and a midwife that you might have only recently met. If you feel frightened or scared at all, then adrenaline is the opposite of oxytocin, and that will make your contractions stop. It goes right back to the fight or flight response. So quite often you'll hear it, like somebody will be contracting like mad when they're at home. They come to the hospital, for example, bright lights, people they don't know, noises, all of their contractions stop. So we'll try and encourage that. So when you do come into the unit, we can keep the lights low. You can play your own music. We can push the bed to the side of the room. Everything to kind of keep those contractions building and keep those contractions coming stronger and regular and same strength, same length throughout the period of your labour.
I think everybody's different as well. You know, what works for one doesn't work for another. Some people don't like to be touched. So massage may not be your thing. It might be a familiar smell. You might say you want to bring a pillow from home that smells of home. You might want to bear hug your partner and sniff him. You know, you might find that really comforting, and obviously that's hopefully going to get your love hormone building, which obviously we really want. So, you know, maybe bring in some music, you know, familiar music, a playlist that, you know, you recognise as happy music that makes you feel comfortable. So the aim of the game is to keep us kind of calm and as relaxed as possible.
And
so,
remember to breathe, because if your shoulders are up like this and you're holding your breath, nothing's going to happen. Breathe. So breathe in for 4, out for 8. Big, long, slow breaths. It's just going to help you focus and keep calm.
So we're not trying to fight this process. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
You know, we want this process to happen. You obviously want to meet your baby, and we want to allow your body to do what it's designed to do and does very well. You know, nine times out of 10, you know, it's amazing design. So, you know, if we, you know, can make sure that you're as relaxed and, you know, particularly between contractions, that you go as floppy as possible and really relax down and untense all your muscles, you know, that's really, really quite key. So when things start, and hopefully you'll be at home, there's lots of different tools that you can use to help you. So distraction actually is quite key to begin with. You know, if you time every contraction from the beginning, it's going to feel a lot longer, okay? Whereas if you can go about your normal activities, you know, you can go for a walk, do some ironing, scrub the kitchen floor if you want to do some hands and knees, that getting baby into a good position again. So, you know, trying to just carry on as normal for as long as you can. When you can't, that's obviously then a sign that things are progressing and that, you know, those contractions and sensations are deepening, okay, which is good, okay. So distract yourself as long as you can. And obviously we're expecting irregular contractions to begin with. So you may have a contraction that you feel quite strongly in your tummy or your back, and that may last even 30 seconds. And then that goes away. And you may not have another one for 10, 20, 30 minutes. And then the next one could be weaker or shorter or slightly longer. So they can be very irregular in every way, okay, whilst they're getting established. Okay, so, you know, eating and drinking is really key. Your body's using all of this energy, burning all these calories. You know, it's like running a marathon. You know, you wouldn't do it without any fuel going in. So, you know, really, really important. Now, glugging water, you may actually feel a bit sick. So sipping, regularly having sips of liquid, you know, something obviously that your partner can remind you about, you know, a gentle encouragement. So, you know, you may not fancy big meals, you know, roast dinners or anything, but little nibbly bits of fruit cut up, also kind of cereal bars or things that are going to sustain you more than just, say, chocolate or Lucozade. You know, we want a more sustaining type of food and drink. So, you know, clear liquid water or squash as much as possible. Obviously tea if you feel up to it. You may not fancy a cup of tea. And nice regular food. So at least every couple of hours you need to make sure that you've had some food and some drink, okay? Unless obviously you're asleep. Hopefully you will get some break and get some rest at some point during this early labour.
And obviously, if you're drinking lots or frequently, we want you to keep emptying your bladder. So that can be a job for your birth partner, just to remind you to go to the toilet. Because while you're having these contractions stopping and starting, quite often you just kind of forget. And it's important to empty your bladder, because if your bladder's full, that's going to hinder the baby's descent. So keep emptying your bladder. We said before, finding a place in your home that you feel really safe and nurtured and comfortable. It can be maybe your bedroom, or if you've built a nursery for the baby. So when these contractions are stopping and starting, if you start to think you're losing control a bit and I can't do this, and you're talking yourself out of it, you can take yourself back to that safe place and kind of regroup, refocus, get grounded, thinking, yes, I can do this. These contractions, it's almost like telling yourself, this is an unusual sensation that I haven't experienced before. What am I going to do with it? Rather than, this is really painful. Oh my god, I don't like it, and tensing everything up, because obviously everything hurts more when you're really tense. So keep the low lighting and the soft music and the distraction, like Lucy said.
Some people even like some positive images,
Yeah.
don't they? So whether that's a forest or a beach, something that's just going to draw your eye and make you kind of reminisce or drift away into that place and refocus you.
Yeah. And it's important to get some rest as well as mobilise, because obviously, you are going to go into labour, and sometimes it can last a long time. So it's important to be well rested, but mobilise as well. If you've got stairs in your home, or stairs you can walk up and down stairs sideways, so you're kind of tilting the pelvis, because babies don't just come in and come out. It's a bit like a square peg round hole. They have to wiggle down.
Like a cork in a bottle of wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Aromatherapy is very good as well. Lavender is very relaxing, and you can use aromatherapy when you come into the birth centres as well. So that's something else to sort of think about. All tools in your toolbox that can help you cope whilst you're in this latent phase at home.
Definitely. And it might seem a bit strange saying to rest and try to sleep. If you are contracting, even if it's only every half an hour or 15 minutes, well, how am I possibly going to sleep? Well, actually, if you build a bit of a pillow fort, and get on your side, left side is quite good, and actually have pillows all around you, under your legs, round the back and the front, so you can literally go all floppy. You're not having to hold yourself at all. So even if you just drift off even just a little bit before the next contraction, that's obviously going to help. And like we said before, get rid of all that tension, which is good. So another thing that can help you at home is using a TENS machine. So that's something that you would hire yourself. You can sometimes hire it from your local children's centre as well, but there are private companies online. And there are 4 sticky pads that are connected to the machine. So 2 sticky pads go up by your bra strap, and 2 then go parallel to that, almost at the top of your bottom knicker line, so on your back, on your lower back. And so the idea with a TENS machine, with those sticky pads there, is that you get a slight nerve stimulation. So you get like a tingling sensation on the skin, and that's travelling then up the spine and to the brain. And it's making the brain basically think that the contractions aren't as intense, that they're not as painful as that. So it's kind of dampening down those pain receptors in the brain. So it's really clever, and can make a huge difference to some ladies for how long you are able to stay at home, how long you feel comfortable at home for. You can obviously wear it on the drive-in as well, which is quite helpful. And it's got a little bit of a placebo effect too, in that the good ones have a boost button. So as then the contractions start, you can press your boost button, and that will increase the level of the effect. And that's just while the contraction is happening. So then when the contraction ends, you turn the boost off. But that feeling of, I've pressed my button, I'm all right, I can do this one. Right, another one done, boost off. That actually helps a lot of ladies too. So it's almost like another distraction. It gives you something to do and makes you feel like you're helping yourself as well. So obviously they're not for everybody, and we wouldn't recommend to obviously use them in the shower or the bath for obvious reasons. But they can make quite a difference to your ability to cope with that early and also the active labour too. People wear them sometimes throughout their labour. So it's worth having a look at hiring one of those if you want to. Another type of pain relief that you might hear of a lot and think, well, how on earth can that make a difference, is paracetamol. So paracetamol is a really common drug. A lot of people take it for period pain. So it's good for those kind of niggly, really low, crampy feelings, because you can get a kind of achy feeling even between contractions. So paracetamol will help with that, and also back pain too. And paracetamol is normally better taken regularly, so taken every 4 hours. So, obviously no more than 4 doses in the 24-hour period. But that is thought to be more effective than just taken all over the place, okay? So I always like to think of it as a bit like layering a cake. You have a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of TENS machine, maybe a bit of paracetamol, and some of the other things that we're going to mention as well.
It's all tools in your toolbox to use to help you get through.
Absolutely. Another thing people may find useful is having a bath. Some people love to be in water and find that really soothing. So, running a bath, obviously that can relax you, and it can actually relax you to the point where your contractions go off and you get out of the bath and go to bed then, obviously. Even if it's 3 p.m, please go to bed if you've been contracting away. And so, having a bath may actually just help you to stay at home that bit longer, and certainly will mean that you feel really comfortable with your lower tummy and back. You can get into all sorts of positions, especially if you've got a big enough bath. You can get onto hands and knees position, and a lot of people love it in there. Or obviously a warm shower, especially on your back. A lot of ladies love that warm shower water trickling on their back, and that's something that ladies can do when you come into hospital. If you're in established labour, you're coming in, or you're staying with us, and actually you're needing that, you can use the showers in our building. So a few ideas, and obviously repeated baths is fine. If you want to be super clean, but another job for your partner to run a bath for you.
And it's important throughout all of this to monitor the baby movements, and if you've got any concerns, do please call. So when you've been contracting on and off for a while and you feel that these contractions are picking up, like we said earlier, use Labourline kind of as your triage service. And if you want to go in and get assessed to find out exactly what's happening with your labour, talk to Labourline about it, and if they think it's appropriate, they might say, yep, come in, get assessed. So when you come in, we will do a full antenatal appointment on you. So we'll be listening to baby, we'll do your blood pressure and all of the normal things that we do. And we'll also, with your consent, do a vaginal examination to see what's happening with the cervix. So if you think back to the previous slides when we talked about the Play-Doh and the balloon, so with a vaginal examination, we are looking for 4 different things. So make sure that when you go in, you ask the right questions, because if you go in and get assessed and somebody says to you, oh, you're 1 centimetre, you have to go home. And if you've been in this latent phase for quite a long time, you're going to go home thinking, oh my goodness, I'm only 1 centimetre, I can't do this. So you're already talking yourself out of it. Whereas if you go in and you find out, actually, now your cervix is paper thin, is not the 2 to 3 centimetres long, and it's at the front, so it's changed shape, it's moved forward, your mucus plug has gone, there's no thickness to it, and you're 1 centimetre dilated, you're going to go home to get into established labour feeling much more empowered and much more positive that you can do this. So it's taken already, you're not talking yourself out of it and thinking, oh my God, I can't do it. You're going home thinking, look at all the changes that I've already made. So you're already feeling stronger about it, and it gives you a bit more excitement and a bit more oomph to like, oh my God, we're really doing this. We're going to have our baby soon. So it's important to kind of ask those questions. What position's the baby in? How thick is my cervix? Where's my cervix? And how far dilated am I? It's not all just about the dilatation. So like we say, when you're contracting 2 to 3 times in 10 minutes, and they're regular contractions, they're similar in strength and length, and you've been like that for an hour or so, then use Labourline, call them up and use them as your triage service. You can call them at any point in this early stage of labour if you just want a bit of reassurance. That's absolutely fine. But when you're contracting 2 to 3 times in 10, that's probably when we would invite you in to come in to get assessed.
So when you're thinking about your birth partner, you want to obviously make sure that it's somebody you feel comfortable with. And that might be a really obvious thing to say, but it isn't always the right thing for your partner to be there. Some partners don't feel comfortable supporting you. They're obviously worried about seeing their loved one in pain. Obviously, a lot of the time they do come in, but there's no rule, as it were. You can have whoever you want with you, whether that's your mum, your sister. So it just needs to be somebody that you feel able to be yourself with. You can make sometimes a lot more noise in labour than you thought you might, or say things that you didn't think you would say. There's lots of really quite expulsive and uncontrollable feelings that are going to be happening, particularly as you get into established labour, and that pressure and that feeling of baby moving down and down. So, you know, you want to feel like you can be relaxed and not tense, okay? So, you know, your birth partner is your cheerleader. You know, they're the person that's going to be your advocate. They're the one that isn't in labour, so can talk and you know, have a conversation with the midwife, or, you know, if any problems happen then with the doctors, and just kind of advocate your wishes. So, you know, it's quite important that they understand what you were thinking as far as your birth plan and preferences, so that you're on the same page. And, you know, it might be that you have a bit of a code, you know, oh, I said I wasn't going to have an epidural, but if I say this word, then it means I really, really, really need it. Obviously, birth is a changing thing, you know, with the best plans in the world, sometimes on the day, you know, you make a different decision, you know, whether it's pain relief or whatever. You know, sometimes it needs to be a different type of birth to maybe how you'd thought before, and that's okay. You know, we know that birth does change as time goes on, so it's just trying to be a little bit flexible, but you know, your birth partner knowing what you would like, okay, and they're the one obviously rooting for you, okay, and giving that encouragement. You know, I think there's a tendency for men certainly to feel like they want to fix things. That's a really common thing, okay? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it means that, you know, in labour, that's not going to be possible. You know, your birth partner needs to be talking to you, reassuring you, giving you that emotional and practical support. So as far as they need to be kind of encourage you to eat, to drink, maybe suggesting a change of position. So, you know, they're kind of gently guiding and supporting, okay, and that's
also
their role.
Remembering that they're the guardian of the oxytocin. So we talked about oxytocin before as being the hormone of love. So they're the guardians of that. So they're going to make sure that the room's, you know, dimly lit and you've got what you need, and they're going to encourage you to remind you to go to the bathroom and things like that. So just to keep that oxytocin flowing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, lots of different things that your birth partner can do, you know, to help. Okay.
So we've talked about massage before and practicing massage beforehand, so you both feel comfortable with it if you're doing it in front of a midwife. And that's another thing that can keep that oxytocin flowing between you. Also, when you pack your hospital bag, you're going to pack a bag for you and a bag for baby, and get your partner to make sure they've got a bag as well with their own phone chargers in and their own snacks and maybe some deodorant and a change of a t-shirt or something like that, because sometimes you potentially might be in the place of birth for quite a long time. And also, if you've packed your own bag and baby's bag, maybe get them to unpack it and repack it, so when you're laying there all serenely with your lovely new baby and you say, can you get such and such from the birth bag, they're not going like this and ruining that oxytocin. So that's always handy as well. And make sure they've got their own snacks, because woe betide a birth partner that eats a labouring woman's snacks. That's all I'm going to say.
Definitely. So, a few ideas for packing your bag. There is a list on the Maternity Matters website that you can download if you want a list, you know, with all of the ideas on there. But we obviously just wanted to just discuss a few thoughts, really. Now, it can be helpful to think about having 3 bags, okay? I don't mean kind of a suitcase times 3, so just 3 regular bags, one for you, one for baby, one for your birth partner, okay? Obviously, just be aware at the maternity unit, you know, when you're coming in to have your baby, that there isn't a lot of space. So, you know, not packing for an all-inclusive 1 week stay, basically. Your birth partner can always bring more in as well, okay? They're very welcome to. Some people, if they are not quite sure what the birth partners are going to end up bringing in as the extras, pack a second spare bag of extras at home that they can just grab. It's up to you. Depends how organised you like to be. So, you know, there's a few things that can be quite helpful to have. So a lip balm. You're doing lots of breathing and blowing, aren't you, in labour, Sam? So you're kind of,
And if you're using Entonox, that's quite drying as well, and dries your lips.
yes, definitely. So you can get quite fleeky. So having a lip balm, really quite essential. I would pack flip-flops as well. Obviously, it's communal showers if you go to the ward, you know, if you do need to stay after the birth. So, you know, it can be quite nice to have flip-flops on for the showers and everything. Also, we mentioned before about bringing your own pillow, that familiar smell. Our pillows and mattresses are wrapped in plastic for obvious infection control reasons. So you can feel quite sweaty laid against them, even with the pillowcase on. So you may want to bring a pillow from home, and obviously that would be a bit more comfortable for you.
Put a coloured pillowcase on it, that's what I say, not a white one, otherwise we'll think it's one of ours and it may well get lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we want great big pants in this bag of yours. So, you know, disposable knickers, pants. I think a lot of people say, oh yeah, pack those. Well, actually, they can be quite small when you get
and
them
not very
out,
comfortable.
even if you've sized up. Some just nice, proper cotton, maybe black, big cotton pants. Can't really beat them. So pack, you know, a good few pairs of those. Obviously, you're going to need plenty of pads, especially for when you get home as well. So if there's a 3 for 2 offer on, then go for it. And you want those nice thick maternity pads, not the thin ones with wings. Okay.
If you're not planning to breastfeed and you're planning to formula feed, you will need to bring in some starter packs of the formula milk, as we don't have that here. We've got a few bottles that are for emergencies, but if you are planning to formula feed, please do bring in the starter packs of formula milk. And also, if you're planning a home birth, pack a grab bag that you can just leave by the front door. So if for whatever reason we would need to transfer in, you've got a bag you can quickly grab, or your partner can grab to take with you into the hospital.
Also makes it easier if you do end up having your baby at home, that you're not kind of ransacking the house, or your partner isn't ransacking the house for all the things you'll need afterwards, like baby clothes and nappy, etc. So it can be quite a helpful grab bag at home.
And also, don't forget your hospital notes. Really important when you're coming into a birth centre or to the unit. Please pack your hospital notes.
Yeah, and you can also bring colostrum with you. So if you've harvested your colostrum in late pregnancy, and you can talk to your midwife more about that. So that's the milk that your baby eats first. That's something that's already there and can be collected in syringes, and that would need to be put in the freezer and then brought in with you, obviously, on the day. Yeah.
And practice how to use the car seat. This is really, really important. Practice using the car seat, because when you leave the hospital or the birth centre, you bring your car seat in, put the baby in it, and then you're outside in the car park for ages figuring out how the car seat works.
That's a good partner job, isn't it?
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
Partner job. We're not experts on car seats,
no,
I'm afraid.
So practice with the car seat.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a few different thoughts for you. If you are bringing formula milk, please make sure it is infant first milk, so not follow-on milk, and a starter pack with the screw-on teats that go straight onto a kind of single-use bottle. Are much easier than bringing, tubs and sterilisers and everything. So a starter pack would be great. Okay. If you're planning to breastfeed, you don't need to bring any formula milk with you. Okay. Please leave your car seat in the car as well. You don't need to bring that in with you in labour. Your partner's going to be carrying enough, probably, bless him or her. So you can leave that car seat, and then when baby is ready to go home, they can just grab that.
Get it.
Absolutely. So we hope you've enjoyed this session on recognising and supporting your early labour. and found it useful, have got some useful tips. Obviously you can revisit these videos as you wish, and there will be other videos being recorded on further sessions.
Good luck with the rest of your pregnancy.
Have a lovely baby.